games even, and movies, things like Netflix. Those interests have increased because people are looking for entertainment, they're looking for distractions and whatnot. More specifically to the media types. So newspapers, we've seen more people turning to other trusted news sources. So digital tends to be your first point of information for the day. Over the past couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of print houses start to drop their pagination by as much as 45%. So the number of pages in newspapers are reducing, which might also be due to the fact that advertisers are scaling back on their spends in print. So that has had an adverse effect on newspapers as well. Radio remains relatively stable, although there are certain stations that have reduced their number of hours of broadcasts. But what we're beginning to see is that the usual conventional spikes of morning and evening listenership has been traded for a more flatter, spread out listenership over the day, because the mornings aren't as early as they used to be. For out of home specifically, I think we've seen a lot of shifts here. Telcos have scaled back in terms of their inventory. So be it MTN, be it Airtel, Glo, there has been a significant scaling back on investments. FMCG clients have either gone dark or have reduced significantly their own outdoor visibility. Alcohol brands have put a lot of activities on hold. It could be waiting for the bans to be lifted on bars and pubs and restaurants, and you might then see a resurgence of alcohol brands on out of home. But for now, a lot of things are on hold, be it the Diageos, be it the Pernod Ricards, the Nigerian breweries. Quite a lot of the activities have also been put on hold. But we're also seeing cancellations. We're also seeing brands canceling existing plans or postponing existing plans. We've seen a reaction from ON as well with regards to offering a 25% discount during the period, which is really a response to the sharp decline we're seeing in demand. And I think a couple of clients has taken up that proposition. Cinemas remain closed. Even if the cinemas were open, a number of major movie releases have been delayed or cancelled or postponed till next year. So the activities on cinema would remain very low. We don't see them opening till, say, much later in the year. And some cinemas like Genesis are experimenting with drive-through cinemas, some kind of cinema activation to see if they can bring that in. How successful that has been is yet to be told. Now, the question is, what does all these shifts mean for media investments? I think the first thing to look at is what the market responses have been to the crisis. So if you look at it from a media supply standpoint, and we're going to talk about the media demand standpoint as well. If you look at it from a media supply standpoint, from a TV perspective, because there has been an increase in viewership, what we're seeing is that platforms, take the digital satellite platforms, for instance, are beginning to offer stay-at-home bundles, discounted bundles, really trying to take advantage of as much inventory and spend that advertisers are throwing on TV. But we're also seeing new TV content being developed in rapid succession, to make up the available inventory. We've seen radio reduce their number of broadcast hours from maybe 24 hours a day to as low as 18 hours a day due to movement restrictions and whatnot. I've spoken about outdoor, and I've also spoken about cinema in the previous slides. But we've also seen from a mobile online advertising standpoint, we've seen the digital inventories get a little bit more expensive because there are a lot more people doing digital advertising, owing to the fact that a lot of the traffic, consumer traffic and attention is in that space. Paginations of newspapers have dropped, and e-commerce is on the rise, with the likes of Jumia, which remain probably the largest e-commerce platform in the country. And we're also seeing the launch of new e-commerce platforms, the likes of Suka, Merchlist, and there's still a couple of them in the works, trying to take advantage of this period. From a media demand standpoint, I think the industry has also responded. there's been a cut in advertising spend. I think it's safe to say that the top 20 advertisers have scaled back their spending from as much as from 30% to 50%. Leading telcos have cut investments. E-commerce is currently being leveraged by all key players. And from an asset standpoint, the creative media assets, people are repurposing their existing asset to suit the current situation. So take, for instance, an MTN's payoff of everywhere you go, convert it to everywhere you stay, just trying to get in tune with the times and making sure it resonates with the current mindset that the consumers are in. And there are people that are working to keep the brand salient, switching their focus from their core range to something that's a bit more in demand. I don't know if you've seen the hand sanitizers by 7-Up bottling company called Too Sure. It wouldn't be something you would expect to come out from the 7-Up bottling company, but it's on the shelves. So at the end of the day, they are also looking, the industry is also reworking their business models, repurposing their production lines to produce things that are more in need at the time. So what does that mean from a media inflation or deflation, as the case may be, as we go into the year? One of the things we've done is that we have looked at, and this is an internal work we've done internally at PhD, we've tried to look at demand factors and look at supply factors across the different media types and try to predict what we believe the media inflation will be going forward. So when we look at the different media types and we look at the demand factors, from economic factors to the external advertising dynamics, the market dynamics, and from a supply end, what's happening with media inventory and viewership. H1 before COVID was already on a decline, around -4. H2, still within H1, sorry, when we fell into the COVID era, that increased to as much as -7.2. And it might actually be more than that. And we believe that that media deflation, as the case may be, will continue even into H2, probably even in a lower level. So the reality is that demand is low and supply remains how it was at the beginning of the year. Therefore, there has to be a shift in terms of pricing and rebasing of media inventory. So what are brands looking for? What are brands looking for from media owners? I think the first obvious thing that would make sense would be some deep level discounting. And I think Owen was very quick to propose something and put that on the table, largely due to the fact that it was also one of the largest hit industries as well. But the same is being expected from TV, radio, and all the other platforms. So brands are really exploring incidents of distress offers, where they're able to scale back on their spend, but still maintain the same level of visibility. The second thing they're looking for is they are also expecting media owners to rebase their pricing. So basically coming back to them to say, look, when things were normal, these were our costs. But during this COVID era, these are our new costs. And as we ramp up back to normalcy, we can return to the original pricing. So that is also an expectation from a lot of clients. And I think it's instructive to know that, because it also helps to inform the kind of conversations we have with the clients going forward. The clients are looking for support to leverage their e-commerce capabilities, especially those who are just beginning to build those capabilities. So the question would be, how are media owners and agency alike helping these brands to build those capabilities going forward? They're also looking for assistance in bridging the gap between comms and commerce, kind of making every touch point clickable and shorten that consumer journey, because people are not making as much trips outdoors as they used to. And I think the last thing, but also probably one of the most important things they're looking for, is media innovations. How do we come up with strong media innovations that are aligned with the shifts in consumer habits, that are aligned and in tune with the times? And that really is what will drive real engagement for the brands to consumers. So that is the first part that I wanted to cover, which is around media shifts and isolating them. The second part is a little bit of a deep dive into e-commerce capabilities, because it's currently the buzzword with every client. Every client meeting we walk into, it's all e-commerce this, e-commerce that. Consumers are shopping online. They want to get on that space, and we need to be in a position to assist them to drive that agenda. It's no news that e-commerce is on the rise, not just across the world, but even in Nigeria, and there are numbers to prove that. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but there's been 50% year-on-year growth in purchasing of food and personal care items via e-commerce. And even the total amount of money spent online is also on the increase. So I think I want to summarize this into 4 key steps that need to be taken to increase digital e-commerce sales. The first is closing that gap between communication and commerce by trying to make as many touch points shoppable. So how do we communicate to consumers where they can place orders, where they can get things done? And this isn't just restricted to digital platforms alone. TV has a role to play, radio has a role to play, even out of home has a role to play, especially at points of sale. So it's about thinking through that journey and trying to understand at what points can each media type play a role in bridging that gap. A great example is what MTN did with their MTN High-Net Flex, where you could literally on WhatsApp place an order and have a High-Net Flex delivered to you in 24 hours. You know, I tested it out myself. I literally went on WhatsApp, you basically talking to a chatbot, and it gets all your details, and the very next morning, the High-Net Flex is delivered to your home. So basically, they are making all these touch points shoppable. So you're placing an order through WhatsApp, they get you registered online and everything. So from a agency and media owner perspective, we need to start thinking around how do we assist brands like MTN to drive this agenda? Because at the end of the day, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to decongest their connect centers, get at more people doing the shopping from their homes, from the comfort of their homes, and how can media help drive that? TV has a role to play, radio has a role to play, out of home to a large extent has a role to play as well. The second thing is about switching, physical distribution to e-commerce platforms, and we're seeing a lot of brands taking up that model. I've got 3 examples here of how a couple of brands locally have been able to take advantage of this. So take game stores, for instance. They don't have a lot of stores. They've got 4 locations in India. But what they've done is they've got dedicated numbers where you can place your orders. They've got online, 1 click takes you to the store, you order, it gets delivered. And they're all tying in with all the big e-commerce platforms. You've got Domino's Pizza, for instance, that have introduced a 0 contact delivery service. And average delivery time is anywhere between 20 to 25 minutes. And you've got brands like Unilever that have opened an online store within Jumia where consumers can purchase products. So, I mean, it all stems from the understanding that e-commerce is the future. The new habits that people are learning, they probably will not drop. And how do you take advantage of that? From a media perspective, we now need to start thinking of how we can support these brands along this journey. Again, that needs to be the agenda for agencies, needs to be the agenda for media owners. We need to get out of the space of, for lack of a better phrase, navel gazing, and start to think to ourselves, we need to first support the brands, drive their agendas, because once we're able to do that, then it also ensures the survival of the agencies and the media houses and all the other businesses within that value chain. And we need to think around the evolving consumer shopping behaviors. So take, for instance, people are buying more, but in fewer occasions. So because maybe now we're starting to see some sense of normalcy, but a couple of weeks ago, people were not going out as often. As of now, you still can't travel outside the States. So shopping habits and movement and behaviors are very different, and we need to look at how we can manage those shifts. The Third thing is, of course, launching a direct-to-consumer e-commerce platform. And a lot of clients are tying in with not just Jumia and Konga, but even the smaller players like Kara and so on. They're thinking around how they can activate that, shoppable catalogs, an order management system, delivery options, and things like that. And the fourth thing is adjusting your product portfolio to suit the evolving requirements. So how does that work? There are brands that have found ways to continue to remain salient, and I've put up a few examples. So again, another MTN example is how they were able to set up what they call the Yellow Hope package, where they offered about 1.4 billion naira worth of airtime, data, devices to frontline health agencies. But this helps to, and by communicating that, by PRing that information, they're able to keep their brand front and center in the minds of consumers. Jagal, on the other hand, that produces Tetmosol, went into manufacturing hand sanitizers. So again, repurposing the existing production lines to develop something that is more in tune with the times, but more importantly, keeping the brand salient. And then an interesting one is Vitafoam. Through one of their subsidiaries, started repurposing their materials, which they already had, cloth, elastic bands, to make face masks, non-medical grade cloth masks for distribution. Again, trying to keep the brand front and center in the minds of consumers. And I think there is a role definitely for media in pushing this kind of information out to consumers, letting people know what these brands are doing to be part of the community. So in summary for this section, I think it's important to note that a lot of these new online shopping habits and behaviors that have been developed during this period are probably going to stick, even when life returns to normal, because once people get used to the convenience of being able to shop online and get things delivered to their homes, they're most likely going to stick to it. So we as media practitioners need to start thinking about how we can equally adapt to these changes. And it's imperative to our own survival as well. How do we start to fuse what we do with digital? How do we start to fuse what we do with social and the kind of interactions that people want to be involved with at this time? Okay, the third section is really around creativity. It's difficult to have a media and brand building conversation without creativity and innovation, because at the end of the day, it's an essential part of what we do. So I think three key things to note. One is that consumers at this point are more attentive than ever. They're keen to hear the news. They're keen to know what's happening. So attention span is longer. So it's really a time to drive messaging. It's also a time for raw creativity and communicating brand purpose. So yes, there will be a bit of sell, but I think it's also a time when people are really attentive to know which brands are really here for us, as against just trying to sell me something. But it's also important that we are not just opportunistic, but we take meaningful and genuine action that are not just token gestures of kindness here and there. It needs to be within the brand ethos to really be out there to help. So there are two focus areas for creativity and innovation. The first thing is we need to totally rethink what we're communicating, right? It's not just advertising. It needs to also be a bit of sharing skills. Consumers are using their time at home to learn, especially those who have kids, because the schools are still closed, right? So consumers are using this time to learn. If you are in a position as a brands person to give mothers things that they can do with their kids at home, that brand is going to stick to the minds of those women. If you are a brand that is willing to teach the woman new skills of baking, for instance, that is also a brand that will stick to people's minds. I was having a conversation with a few people and they said, look, their wives have developed so much cooking skills in baking and catering over this period because people just have more time on their hands to do stuff. So we need to think about how we are sharing these skills educating people, helping them relive the monotony that they're currently going through within the last couple of months. Here are a few global examples, and we're going to look at some local examples in a minute. But here are a few global examples that I think were quite useful. So Diageo globally have been doing free virtual trainings for their online bartender community. Because the bartenders are really an integral part of their business. They are the first point of reference when you want to get a drink or a highball at a bar. So what they are doing is using this period to drive a lot of loyalty within the bartender community so that once we get out of the crisis, they become the brands of choice. Nike is giving free access to their training club. So for people who are into fitness and exercise, which also is a point of interest for a lot of people during this time, then you're able to access Nike's training platform for free, again, keeping the brand top of mind and salient. And even small bakeries are just teaching practical baking skills, online tutorials. Again, these are the brands people will remember as we get out of this space. There are local examples. Think of gyms. Locally, there's a small gym called Bodyline Fitness, and they have daily workout sessions, and they really rake in the numbers. TV stations are not left out. They're taking advantage of the lockdown and the availability of artists to develop new shows. Daily live shows where they can speak to Nigerian celebrities that they probably would not have had access to if not for the lockdown. And there are possible partnerships that they can have with a lot of youth brands. And there are also celebrities that are now very good potential influencers, if you ask me, because they're really raking in the numbers. Again, they all equally have a lot of idle time on their hands, and there's opportunity for co-creation and content partnerships with these people. So still on creativity, the second thing is around thinking of new ways to communicate. And this is where it really concerns media people, not just the media owners, but also the agencies. We need to create new interfaces for the brands. Businesses need to adapt to the new media mix. They need to ensure that they're keeping pace with how consumers are now using and consuming media. So a few brand examples. Take the Lagos Business School. And they're not the only ones doing this, but it's a bit of a standout example. So a lot of the sessions they were not able to hold physically. So what they've done is offering free webinars and seminars, and quite honestly, what we're doing today on Outdoor Republic is a perfect example of this kind of thing, where they're just talking about various topics relating to COVID, helping small businesses, helping big businesses navigate the landscape, but at the same time, keeping the Lagos Business School top of mind and positioning them as the foremost thought leader within that space. The World Health Organization has set up chatbots on WhatsApp where you can ask questions, basically changing how you would typically communicate or get information from the WHO. So that is quite interesting coming from them. And even big platforms like Instagram are also thinking of new interfaces where you can co-watch with individuals, where you can browse through Instagram feeds with family and friends, group chats, family video sessions, and stuff like that. So pretty good examples of how people are looking at new ways to interface with consumers and so on. Here are a few local brand examples of how brands and people here in Nigeria have also used Instagram Live, for instance. Take Trophy Stout, doing the first ever e-concert with Tuba by take Munch-It, teenage snack, right? And having the first 6-hour non-stop dance live on Instagram with Kathy. And even the likes of Jimmy Jett having his isolation party every weekend and streaming that live, getting brands like Hennessy, Red Bull to partner with him and drive this. So again, the question we need to ask is, if this is what the brands are thinking, how are we, the media owners and agencies, helping them fulfill this agenda? So the conversation needs to start from, what do the brands need? What are they doing to get themselves back into some form of normalcy? And how are we as media owners driving that agenda alongside the brands to make sure that we're all in sync at the end of the day? So I think it's important for us to all find time to innovate. We need to use this time to rethink our strategies, especially platforms like out of home that have been the worst hits. We need to start thinking about new ways to drive engagement and get the information across. So for example, if advertisers are scaling back on outdoor inventory, then it puts a huge risk on people who have billboards that are worth 100 million naira slot a year. So the question you need to ask is, how do we scale that down? How do we repurpose our existing sites to either smaller LED billboards at points of sale, move our sites or have locations that are closer to where people still tend to congregate? Can we do creative things like what is happening in the US, where people are beginning to paint on roads, for instance, and use technology by using drones to hover over those roads to pass the messaging. Again, it's all about innovation. Everybody needs to start rethinking their strategy. And that is what gets the brand and the client's attention. Obviously, this rethinking needs innovative workshops, and those workshops will have to be done virtually. But we also need to use a creative workshop guide to improve that approach. I think at the core of it, every business really has a skill to offer. I mean, you've got engineers, scientists, designers, name it, that work within any business. And there are things that they can share and they can communicate to consumers and alike that really drives engagement. So we need to think about how we can package those things and how we can promote them. But we also need to see how our current messaging can be repurposed to suit the current climate. We need to look at our current campaign materials, for instance, and see if we can redefine them or refine them rather to resonate a lot more. We need to look at how we're currently communicating to people. Does it still make sense? And if it doesn't, how can we change that mode of communication? And we also need to see which activities we currently have can be adjusted. At the same time, there are adjacent opportunities that exist in form of new needs, right? So the current situation has brought about a couple of new needs. What was not important before currently becomes important now. So finding out what these new needs are for the different consumers and making sure that, see how relevant they are to the brand. Looking at what assets and tools we have that can help solve whatever challenges people are facing. And what could we create that could also help answer whatever questions people have. So I think in summary, it's important that we find time to innovate. And there's never been a better time than now. I think the best innovations come out at times of crisis and times of conflict. So, I mean, we're right smack in the middle of it. The best information we have about a vaccine for COVID-19 is that we'll get it on the top side of next year, perhaps, if we're not. What that means invariably is that for the rest of this year, we're going to have to live with COVID-19. What that tells me is that there's going to be some form of restriction even all the way till December. So this new normal we're in is here, it's going to be here for a while. And business models have to change. The way we communicate has to change. And I take it back to out of home again, because I think, well, this is an Outdoor Republic conversation, but I take it back to outdoor again because they have been the worst hits. As an agency person myself, I've seen what has happened with the media investments, and I've seen that outdoor particularly has been the most hit. So the conversations we're having with not just the partners, but with our clients alike is that, look, we believe that outdoor still plays a major role in the communication mix, especially here in Nigeria. But it is the how and the innovations behind it and the cost efficiencies that would determine how much funds can be funneled back into it. So, I mean, the current conditions suggest that this really is a remarkable time for creativity. And there's a commercial case for us to make that leap for more innovation, for more creativity. So it's important that we all don't miss that opportunity to just really capitalize on the creativity that this period lends itself to. Yeah, so that really is, in a wrap, what I had to share. Three key things, just to summarize. We looked at the shifts from the media shifts and what brands are looking for media owners. We zoned in on e-commerce, which is the current buzzword for a lot of clients, and we need to think about how we can support them along that e-commerce journey. But lastly, and also most importantly, is creativity. The client really is looking for innovation. They're looking for people that can push them ahead of the pack. And any media owner or any agency that is able to crack that, is really going to get the budgets and the investments to drive that agenda. So, I mean, Babs, that's it from me. So over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dozie. You've been tremendous, I say. Not all our guests are this magnanimous to share a presentation and this kind of data-driven PowerPoint slides, So you really made our day today with all these nuggets that you've shared with us. We appreciate you. I can say that on behalf of even all the participants here, about 26 of them. So without much ado, we're going to dive into the question and answer segment. So like I said, I'm going to break the ice. I'm going to ask you some couple of questions, Okay. Some of the earlier editions that we've had, couple of your colleagues from the media side as well as advertiser side, they've really, really, really overemphasized, if I may say, using the word innovation. They've really challenged outdoor media owners to come up with innovative ideas. So we also plan to have a webinar around out-of-home innovation very soon. But again, this question I'd love to ask you just ahead of that, our webinar. Questions have been asked. When you say innovation, what exactly are you demanding for out-of-home media owners, knowing fully well that from our part, we've done a lot of investment into technology. The LED in itself is a technology, and then there are new versions year in, year out, and the out-of-home media owners keep making such investments. So, and then again, out-of-home media owner does not also interface directly with the advertisers. So more often than not, if we have an idea that can be considered as innovation, we come across to media independent agencies like yours, and then we talk about this and all that. Without having that direct interface with advertisers, we always feel that our role is very limited when it comes to all these bring up new ideas and all that. So in specific terms, if you can, whether within the Nigerian market or outside of the Nigerian market, if you can, just by way of reminder, if there is any that you can point to within the last decade or two that comes to mind directly to you, that you can consider innovation from out-of-home media companies. Can you share one or two with us, just so we, like a case study of what you consider innovation? That might just spike something out of our participants here who are media owners.
Yeah. Look, Babs, I think you're quite right in terms of, and before I get into the specifics of examples, I think you're quite right in terms of you media owners, especially from the outdoor, not being as close to the advertisers. And I think that agencies like ourselves need to facilitate that interaction. Now, even if we cannot get you guys in the same room with the advertisers, we need to create workshops and sessions where we're able to ideate together. I think out of home has been put in the back door or the back room of advertising for too long. We need to get into spaces where we're able to engage you guys and get the advertisers to understand that there is innovation in the out of home space. I think when the client says innovation, many a times innovation doesn't necessarily mean it must be technology driven. There are simple things that can be innovative. Take for instance, I can have an innovative campaign by doing road painting, for instance. It is out of home, it is innovative, but you might need to leverage technology to some extent by using a drone to show what that visual looks like from the top and put it on social media and leverage it and so on. So we're seeing that happen all over the world as well. In this current climate, you can also think around cost efficiencies. There is some innovation in that aspect. So it goes back to my point around, okay, so think about it this way. There are probably 10 or 15 clients in the country that can afford $100 million billboard. I'm not gonna name names, but I'm sure you can take a good guess at who those clients are. If those clients, 10, 15 of them cut their outdoor spend, it means that anybody who has a load of 100 million naira worth of billboards, big LEDs all over Lagos, is not going to get inventory. Basically, you're going to be running empty for the next couple of months. So the question would be, how do you scale down that operation? How do you convert that to probably smaller LEDs in points of sale? And how do you layer that with data? So if you, for instance, have LEDs at every spa and every ShopRite and every so take modern trade, for instance, every Ebano store, and you're able to layer that with some information from geo-targeting in terms of where the brands are available and serving the right ads to the right people at the right location. You can get advertising from Domino's Pizza, for instance, to let people know that they are close to a Domino's store with a small LED billboard. And then you can get smaller advertisers to buy smaller chunks of time on those billboards. So I think there is a case for innovation when it comes to just scaling down the operation to meet the needs and relocating those kind of advertising. But again, it can also come in the most basic form, like I said, in terms of you know, points of sale things that can be done, all will be classified as out of home. All over the world, airline advertising is suffering, right? Airport advertising is suffering. So it's not just a Nigeria conversation. UK, US, everywhere. Airports are shut. So all the advertising in those places, nothing's happening. But people are still moving around. So you need to have a conversation with internally and say, look, how do we go where the people are now? Will it be cabs? Will it be in bus? Will it be at petrol stations? Would it be, you know, looking at where people currently are congregating, layering any data you can find, and then adapting your business models to those shifts? That I think is, you know, part of the innovation process that needs to happen in the immediate. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for that, your response. I mean, obviously, without sense of modesty, without sounding immodest, you know, I wear so many hats. So yeah. I'm also part of the owners of Nimbus Media. I'm the executive vice chairman, and I also run an out-of-home advertising company, basically for roadside advertising, Ocean Outdoor Limited. I know that we've taken around so many ideas that you can consider innovation to a lot of agency, and we won't approach your agency too for some. So the question would always come, because when you come up with all these ideas and at the end of the day, none of them gets implemented between the agency and the clients, probably maybe it's not part of what the clients has as objective right now, or budget constraints and all that. So it puts the out-of-home media owner in that kind of a position where ideation becomes limited because more often than not, the drivers of these requests, more often than not comes from the brand owners themselves, They just wake up and think of something, and then they talk to the agency and say, how can we get this implemented? But in terms of scale, percentage, scale of 1 to 10, if it comes from out-of-home media owner, maybe the scale of 1 or 2 to 10 gets implemented, and I stand to be corrected about that. But again, I don't think out-of-home media owners would not see these as a challenge to be taken. I'm sure they will take this as a challenge, and then those innovative ideas will start rolling. It is even very imperative right now that they do that. Questions have started rolling in anyway, but I must quickly add, because we have the OAN president part of us right now. We have the privilege of the Out-of-Home Advertising Association of Nigeria, in the person of Chief Ajufo here with us. And I would quickly want to also mention the fact that Dozie had acknowledged the fact that OAN took a very decisive approach in terms of showing responsiveness and concern for the times we are, especially on the part of the advertisers, to cushion the challenges and the impact that COVID-19 has brought even onto their own budgets by the percentage reduction that OAN approved for all OAN members. So I just thought I should mention that. Anyway, there's a question here from Zoe Olatunji. He says, how can agency manage client expectation despite the cut down in budgets?
Good question. Good question. I think if we look at it more holistically, the client's expectation hasn't really changed. It has always been wanting more for less. So in terms of that narrative, it hasn't really changed. We're still in the space of them wanting a lot more for a lot less. I think I can speak for my agency. What we're doing to really manage the situation is we've looked at it to say the survival of the agency is dependent on the survival of these brands. So the brands now become the priority. If the client scales back their investments, the first thing we've done is also scale back expectations from a KPI standpoint. So be it in terms of reach numbers, GRP numbers, conversion ratios, all those things need to be revisited so that they understand what the current position would be with the scale back spend. But the next conversation would be going back to them to make a case for, are there incidents of distressed sales within the media industry that we can leverage? And that could be media owners coming forward to say, look, I'm able to sell you XYZ from my network, and I can do it at this discounted point and deliver better value for you. We as agency people need to put that forward to the client. Then we also need to think around, are there opportunities to rebase pricing? So what I mean by that is, if a billboard costs 50 million and part of that 50 million component was a 20 million LASA fee, if LASA is magnanimous enough to drop its fee from 20 or 10 million to 2 million, then can the pricing of the board be rebased based on the fact that the constituent parts of that pricing has shifted? So you can go back to the client and say, okay, here, Mr. Client, we now have a rebased fee because for this crisis period, this is what it looks like, right? The TV houses, and I'll use DSTV as an example, have been able to think around models like that, where they're saying, okay, so here's a stay-at-home package, and for the period you are at home, you can buy into this new package where the pricing is a lot lower. So how can we take that same idea and put it into radio, out of home, or whatever media platform it is? So I think that is really how we are managing the client's expectation, but we're also revisiting the situation almost on a monthly basis. Because Babs, I mean, the truth of the matter is that nobody's seen this before, right? So we are all navigating it together, including the client. And nobody who is alive now has seen a pandemic. So the client is, for lack of a better phrase, is stumbling his way through it as well. And they're looking to us for assistance. So decision and positioning are changing based on the times, based on new information. As we go along, we change the modeling. As we move along, we change the direction. But I think it's just to keep at it. And so far, I mean, I think we've been able to match the client's request with some good recommendations that keep the brand salient as we go along.
All right, thank you very much. I mean, I can't agree less with you that we're in a peculiar era. We've not only been hit by the pandemic, it's like a double-edged sword right now, because we also have the global recession around here, and it's impacting Nigeria in a very peculiar manner, considering the fact that Naira has seriously dropped in relation to FX. All right, so there's another question here from Churchill. He says, do you think all these innovations are possible considering the hostile environment out of home is operating in view of state signage agencies regulations?
Yeah.
So
I think, look, it's a fantastic question, and the truth is, nobody says it's going to be easy, right? I was joking with a friend the other day, and I was quoting to him something I had picked up somewhere, that we are in a business of rejection, and it lends itself to what you said about whatever ideas you put forward hardly ever gets picked up. It's the same thing when agencies go to pitch. Everybody hears about PhD wins the MTN account, but you don't hear about the 10 other pitches we lost, yeah? So it's the way the business is structured. It's an industry of rejection. Get used to it. You're gonna get more rejections than acceptance. It's just the industry is modeled, but it shouldn't stop you from trying. So to talk point around the state signage associations and whatever, I think the outdoor industry really needs sponsors within the policy space. The outdoor industry really needs people that can engage with these policymakers and drive the right agenda. So look, I don't know what's happening in the airport space, for instance, but right now it will be unfair for FAN, for instance, to charge any outdoor advertiser who has a space in the airport any cost. That would just be unfair. So there needs to be active engagement with this state signage, this thing. Put the data in front of them. I mean, if total advertising spend in Nigeria is supposed to be 120 billion, which means 10 billion every month is spent on advertising. If that has shrunk to 5 billion, those numbers need to be put in front of the state signages to say, you've got to drop your rates by 50%. Because if not, we're all going to pack up and leave. How do you keep the economy, the wheels of this economy running if you keep your fees where they are? So they can call it whatever they like, palliative, discounts, whatever name they give it. The bottom line is they need to charge less to allow the media owners rebase their pricing and go forward to clients to say, look, I am now in a position to offer you better value for even less. And then the clients are willing to engage. But the truth is, even that is not a guarantee that the idea will get accepted. But at the end of the day, we need to keep our businesses moving. We need to keep throwing ideas at the clients. And you throw 10 ideas, maybe 2 stick, and that's how we keep it moving.
Thank you so much. I mean, these questions around the innovation between the outdoor media owners, the agencies, and the clients won't stop, and then you've already said the reason why it won't stop. You've made an example of even the agencies going for pitches, and then out of about 10 pitches, maybe you've only come back with a victory in one of them, you know. So it's all the same. It's all the same, you know, because people are already kind of private chatting me here in chat room rather than ask the question that is meant for everyone to see. I don't know what rationale is behind that, but in any case, they have their reasons. But it's the same question that they want to, get answers to. So I don't think we need to overflog it. And someone has said specifically here, Babs, most media agencies do not sell innovation from media suppliers to clients properly. They should lead the supplier to the client in a tripartite discussion to get a win-win for all. Dozie should tell how many innovations his agency has taken to clients from other agencies. Anyway, I won't be. You don't need to answer the question really. But the thing is, I see it as a statement rather than a question. But I just felt I should read it out so that I could satisfy the participants that sent it. In any case, he sent it privately. So that's one of the reasons why I won't really insist that you should answer it. But again, you spoke to the other question from Churchill as regards pushing back on signage regulatory agencies, and you also added that of FAN for the airport advertising. I'm sure you and I know that it's not as easy as you've mentioned. You know, these are government establishments. You know, so I think it's for all outdoor media owners to pick their pest tool, the buzzword known as pest tool, which the first P there is referring to political, before you go into economics, social, technology, and all that. We all know what pest tool is. So that political is one of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs and business owners have to grapple with in this part of the economy. You know, I can tell you for free, I've run the airport concession here in Nigeria before for several years, and I know what kind of arrangement goes in there. You know, there are some conversations that are already quite embedded in the contract. They won't even listen to you. You can't even go back. You know, so I mean, I don't envy those that have the airport concession right now, if you ask me.
I totally agree.
We leave that the way it is. I wish them all the best, as well as that of regulatory agencies. You know, I've also been the DG for OISA, Oyo State, and I can tell you for free that you only have one boss on that job, one boss that you report to, and that's the governor of the state. You either do his bidding or you ship out. So isn't that as easy as that? But again, like you said, as business owners, the onus is on us to keep trying and never say never. You just keep trying. And the one that we've been hammering on, innovation. I think we can never hear enough of it. We just continue to innovate. Even if you go on with 20 ideas and none of them is taken, you won't stop. You continue to innovate. So I think that's the answer to that. Let me see. Someone else has asked a question. Perhaps you mentioned a seminar between agencies and out-of-home owners. When is OAN looking to put this together? Because I think it is important get key stakeholders in one room. Okay, I agree with you, Tokwe. Absolutely important. Like I said, we are planning one, and then very soon we're going to hold one. That's one of the new norms that COVID era has brought about for all of us, and then we can't but to embrace it. You know, I mean, 6 months ago, even Outdoor Republic wasn't thinking of anything like this. We would have gone to press, do our hard copy, and then circulated within those that have subscribed. And I'm sure that a lot of you would have not been seeing the publication for some time because a lot of people don't subscribe, and we're tired of giving it out for free. But hey, guess what? We're back here now, and we're doing Zoom and webinars for free, you know. So anyway,
just Babs, 1 minute. I think it's important. in part respond to the question around agencies not selling ideas properly to
Right, please go ahead.
And I think that there is some validity in that statement. I think agencies could do a better job at selling ideas to the client that have been proposed by media owners and so on. That being said, it's also important that when media owners come up with ideas, it comes from the standpoint of what is best for the brand, as against being self-serving. So you need, if you're selling a solution, you need to know what the problem is first. And that's the way agencies operate, right? And I'm saying this not just as someone who's been in the agency, but I've also been a client, right? So I used to be media manager at Coca-Cola. So I understand how the internals of a multinational marketing company works and how the ideation and the innovation happens. So if you come selling a solution to a client without knowing what his problem is, then you can't prove that that solves his problem, because you have no idea what the problem is in the first place. So that means all you've brought to him is something that serves you and not the brand. So that's the starting point. But more specifically about the question of how many have we as PhD brought forward, I think it's something that I make a point of duty to almost even sell myself. Even within this COVID era, we've had very small TV stations come to us with content ideas. We sold it to the clients, and some of them they did. As a matter of fact, we had something in our office called the 30-30 challenge, where we challenged all our team members to get advertisers and media owners involved to come up with creative solutions for the brands. And the best ideas internally were now sold to the client. Now, not all the ideas are going to get taken to the client. I'm just going to put that out there. If the idea does not solve a problem, it's not going to get to the client. That's the truth. But the moment that idea meets the objective, because there are boxes it needs to tick. So I think it's important that people understand that internally we need to tick those boxes, because we have a mandate to protect from the client. The client has given us clear mandates and objectives that we need to deliver on. But I think what is missing is the agency's ability to communicate those objectives to the media owners to say, look, for brand X, these are the things we want to do this year. If you've got solutions that help us achieve this, put them on the table. And I agree, tripartite meetings are important. Agencies shouldn't see it as a, I don't know, the media owner is not coming to take your job, right? He is, if anything at all, he's complementing the service that you provide. And we need to see it as such and support those kind of agendas. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dozie, for that clarification. I mean, you and I know that obviously out-of-home media owners more often than not be clueless about what the objective of the advertisers would be from time to time. Agencies will have the better inclination about them. And then just like you said, the agency should guide the media owners across board, whether it's out of home, whether it's TV, radio, you should guide them across board. I mean, it is what it is, you know.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we need to also look at where we're coming from, talk about case studies and things like that. You know, when I was planning media for Nigerian breweries, when we launched Maltina CPT in 2004, 2005, I remember very well how I guided a lot of outdoor media owners for them to give us the kind of solution that we are looking for, because it was a variant of Maltina, you know, that we were launching. And then there were specifications of what we are looking out for. We obviously achieved those things, but those things we used were very peculiar to that brand. It was a Tetra Pak. And then since then, I mean, we've not seen so much of Tetra Pak like that for a malt brand. So such cannot be replicated. We use innovative stuff, but you can't really replicate them because those things never became, commoditized in this market. As a matter of fact, the multinational CPT was also a failure, because I'm sure my children don't know what multinational CPT is, and quite a number of people don't know what multinational CPT is, you know. So we need to look at case studies and then take learning from them and then move ahead as we go on. But like you said, it's very imperative for the media agencies to guide the media owners as regards what you are looking for. And then you can narrow down this innovation you are saying to specifics. That's the way I see it. In any case, people are satisfied with your answer so far. So I think we can easily put a rest to that issue surrounding innovation. So we can as well move on to other questions. Let me just see through here if we have any other questions. I think you've been a tremendous presenter. Your presentation is commanding very few or little questions. You've done very good justice to the topic of today, if you ask me. Because I'm not seeing the questions flowing. Okay, maybe someone wants to ask a live question. If you do want to ask a live question, I'll gladly unmute you, but you should do it in under 2 minutes. We've done over an hour, considering the fact that we started like 5 minutes behind schedule. In the absence of that, we might just be wrapping up. I think we've already had a wonderful time today.
Absolutely.
That's what you get when you bring up PowerPoint slide presentation. I think the question or the request will now be, can we have those PowerPoint slides? And people have started asking me. So it makes the job halfway done, you know.
Yeah.
So I think someone just raised up our hands now for a live question. Judith. Okay, I'm going to unmute her to ask it. Is that okay with you, Dozie?
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely.
All right. Okay. So Judith, you raised up your hand. You can go ahead and ask a question.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Sorry, Juliet, sorry. There's another Judith there. You are Juliet. One of the house rules is if you want to ask a live question, you need to also make a facial contact, you know. So you need to put on your video. You're allowed. You can do that. All right, go ahead, please.
So my question is, as always, I sell billboards at the airport, and I would want to get more intel and more insight on what it will be like post-COVID for us, because I know the management, they want to see numbers, they want opportunities, they want business coming in after this COVID period, and once the airport is open. So I just want to know what it is going to be like. What's a brand looking forward to? Would it be business as usual, or would it be something different? Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your question.
Yeah, I think, look, it's a brilliant question, Juliet, and particularly around the airports. I think what outdoor advertisers at the airport need to start thinking about is envisioning what the airport will now look like post-COVID. There are going to be testing centers. There are going to be areas where you can sanitize. There are going to be, so start to reimagine what the airport would look like. And then by the time you're able to reimagine that, then you can think around what brands can now fit into those spaces. So basically there needs to be an entire strategy around what the new travel will look like. I mean, if you go online, you can see what Emirates has done with the Emirates Airport in Dubai, where, you know, things have to move, things have to shift. So is there now a role for a Lifebuoy, for instance, from Unilever, from a sanitizing standpoint? Is there a role for any brand that is into health and a detergent brand or whatever? And you now start creating bespoke solutions for those brands. Because the truth of the matter is that with the advertising spend drop to 50%, even when the airports are open, it is unlikely that brands would rush back in and throw the money back in there. So we need to think of new ways to reach people, which might not be your generic advertising platforms, but it might be, have to do with what the new airport layout will now look like. What would the new check-in system be? If there's going to be points where people will have to have a full body sanitizer, I don't know, whatever it is, what can we do around that area? If face masks are going to be mandatory, then how do we get brands to brand the face mask area or hand out free face masks that are branded? Just think around things that would now have to happen there for the next couple of months until things return to normal. And I think that that's probably one of the ways that, not the only way, but at least one of the ways that we can retain some level of business within the airports.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, our guests, our time is fast spent. If you don't have any other question, we might just be wrapping up. This is thank you, sir. I have a question.
Thank you very much.
From someone. One of the house rules is that we don't want your phone name. We actually want your name, not the phone name, like iPhone. So we have a question from iPhone, Dozie. So iPhone is asking you a question. As a brand owner, a key element of out-of-home media provider needs to address is measurement delivery with out-of-home. I don't get that question. You want to ask a live question? I don't understand your question. Dozie, do you get the question?
I think the question is around, data or lack thereof when it comes to outdoor advertising.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think that kind of is the question. And if that is the question, it's inevitable, right? Outdoor advertisers will need to get on that train, right? It's 2020. We need outdoor data. Luckily, there's a company. I don't know if I should name names, but there is a company out there now that is providing outdoor data in terms of traffic counts, being able to calculate reach, and ultimately GRPs that outdoor billboards can deliver. So I think that's the starting point. At the very basic level, outdoor needs to start to deliver those numbers so that you can start to be compared with any other media type and bought along the same measures. The next thing that data will help to empower is to help outdoor advertisers build case studies. Because up until now, not a lot of outdoor advertisers are going around with success stories of what they have done to drive brand visibility and sales. So for instance, if you have billboards within modern trade, or you have LEDs at tills or shopping counters, how has that impacted sales of any product that you've advertised within that shopping mall, or within that, the data is important to say, look, before you started putting the advertising in this particular shop, right, you were selling 10 cartons a week. When we started doing it, you started selling 20 cartons a week. Therefore, advertising has increased your sales by 100% or whatever. Those kind of success stories driven by data will help to drive the narrative for outdoor advertising. But I think at its very basic level, first, we need to be able to deliver numbers, audience numbers, reach numbers, calculate GRPs, and then we can, have conversations with clients on the cost per thousand basis, and then push that further into sales-driven activations. Because at the end of the day, we sell, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So. Exactly. It's the audience that we sell. That's it.
Yeah.
Someone else, I don't know whether this would pass for a question or just a comment. Examples of innovative ideas are interactive outboardings that are data-driven and such that messages pop up specific to an individual that is in close proximity of the audience. I think this is more of a comment.
Yeah, so I think it still addresses the need for data.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We obviously can't overflow that. So the president of OAN has also made a comment here. Says, thank you so much, Dozie. As an association, we would look into all you have said. Babs, you are also doing a good job. Keep it up. Thank you, Pressy. Okay, to Dozie's point, what is OAN doing to ensure availability of data? That's from Richard. That question is not for Dozie. It's for OAN. You will have to join the next, pardon me, you will have to join the next OAN webinar. One was held like 2 weeks ago, and then you can ask that question specifically to the leadership of OAN. And you need to spare my guest. That question is not for my guest. They obviously cannot answer the question on behalf of OAN. I'm sure you and I know that. So let's ask specific questions that Dozie can answer as a guest within his purview. Okay, someone says brilliant, Dozie, on out-of-home audience measurement, especially revenue to clients. These are all comments. All right, our time is fast spent. Like I said, the questions are not rolling any longer, which means that our guest today has scored 100%. That's what it means. Yes, it's an awesome presentation. That's the comment you are getting here. Yeah. So by way of parting shots, you might want to just give us some parting words as we wrap up this segment today, this edition rather.
I think for me, the parting words would be the first thing everybody needs to do this year is survive. We are in a situation no one has seen before. We need to all survive first. We are in an industry where our survival is hinged on the survival of the brands. Therefore, the success of these brands becomes our number one priority. And if we drive the conversation from that standpoint, then it guarantees the survival of everyone along that value chain. But more importantly, there has never been a better time for creativity and innovation than now. Not only are consumers attentive, the client is equally attentive. Because I can tell you for free, the client equally doesn't know what to do, right? They are equally going through this process along with us and navigating it as things evolve. So clients want to hear what we have to say. Let's take full advantage of it.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We should all express our gratitude to Dozie for a wonderful presentation. The nuggets that he has dropped here today, they are quite very informative, most very helpful. We really appreciate his time, his wealth of experience, like he said, cutting across from the agency side to the advertiser side. You don't get this kind of experience in a lot of people. So we appreciate you so much, Dozie. And thank you so much. Like our tradition, once we are closing up and then we are parting, we are all free to unmute. Let me unmute all. And then also put on your videos and then let's make facial contacts. And then you can say bye-bye, thank you, whatever you want to say to the guests. You are all unmuted right now. I've done that remotely from here. The next thing is you can enable your videos and then make some facial contact with our guests, Dozie, so that you don't think I'm just putting up names there. They're actually people behind those names. So you can all express your gratitude and then let him see that.
Thank you, Dozie.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dozie. That was a very insightful session. Thank you. We appreciate.
Thanks, Babs. Thanks, Dozie.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Without
you all joining us today, it will have just been myself, my humble self, and Dozie alone. So we couldn't have done this without you all. We thank you all. Bola Osotule, Felix Eikome, Tayo Shikoya, Mika Kitayo, Juliet, Judith, everyone, Tosan, We see you all. My Pressy. We see you all. Thank you all for joining us today. All right. Till next time, next week. See you all. Bye. Dozie, thanks so much.
Bye.
Good one. Cheers. All right. Yeah. Cheers.